Leonidas walked among the dead, knowing all too well that in a matter of hours, his men would meet a similar fate. Dawn broke cool and clear on the morning of August 19th, 480 BC. King Xerxes of Persia, still reeling from massive losses on day one at Thermopylae, mounted his second assault on the Greeks. This time, he formed a special brigade, men reputed to be of outstanding bravery and daring. He promised them rich rewards to storm the narrow pass and threatened them with execution if they broke ranks and fled.
The Persian king just stays at it. I mean, this is bulldozer tactics. He figures you just keep on sending your men forward and eventually you'll wear down these Greeks.
But once again, the crack Persian force was no match for the Greeks and the elite band of Spartan warriors. As the battle raged on through a second bloody day, it became another large-scale massacre. Slain and wounded Persians were piled high in front of the Greek line, the pungent smell of death everywhere.
The Greeks are taking some casualties, but the Persians are taking massive casualties. It's simply too demoralizing to let this go indefinitely.
From his gold throne high on a hill, Xerxes watched his finest troops suffer savage losses. The king was forced to call off another ill-fated attack.
After all, the Persian king can probably take 50 to 1 casualties and not really feel it. But on the other hand, if he has to take 50 to 1 casualties, and this goes on for weeks on end, there's going to be a tremendous morale problem in his army. So he needs some other way to win this thing.
It was at this crucial point that a Greek named Ephialtes, in exchange for a generous reward, agreed to betray his countrymen by guiding the Persians through a hidden pass over Mount Kalidromos.
In Greek, the name Ephialtes has become an ordinary word for all time to mean nightmare. This is the Greek word for nightmare.
The path that Ephialtes laid out would allow Persia's downtrodden soldiers to outflank the Greeks, a tactic Xerxes believed would finally bring them down. The elite Persian immortals climbed steadily all night, and at dawn the crackling of dried leaves announced their arrival on the other side. The Hot Gates had become a death trap for the Spartans. Steep cliffs and the ocean on one side, the mountains on the other, with Persian soldiers amassed front and now rear.
And at this point, Leonidas takes stock of the situation. He's commander-in-chief in this battle zone, and he orders the bulk of the Greeks at Thermopylae to retreat. The Spartans will all stay there with him. To a man, the Spartans stay there.
After the pass is turned, then we get the great Day 3, one of the most memorable days in Greek history.
Battered and wounded, the proud Spartan warriors donned their heavy armor one last time. As they prepared to die, King Leonidas delivered his final words.
Now, eat a good breakfast, men, for we'll all be sharing dinner in hell.
He decides not ever to surrender, but to fight absolutely to the last man.
As the sun rose above the hills, the Spartans and their few remaining allies were under attack from front and rear. Still, they fought on valiantly, flinging themselves with furious desperation into the bloody field of battle. When King Leonidas suffered a fatal wound, the Spartans fought savagely for possession of the corpse and succeeded in dragging it away. Finally, around noon on August 20th, 480 BC, the Spartans made their last desperate stand.
We're told that their weapons are finally broken, they're discarded, their shields are broken, their armor's rent, and finally they're using their teeth, their hands, and fighting with fists against tens of thousands of Persians who finally surround them on a hill and do not want to waste any more of their manpower and bury them in a sea of arrows.
By early afternoon, it was over. All 300 Spartans lay dead, along with several hundred more of their allies. but the Persian losses were staggering, estimated at 20,000. With victory finally in his grasp, Xerxes inspected the battlefield. He found the body of King Leonidas hidden away and had him decapitated, his head displayed on a pole for all to see. It was a barbaric gesture intended to prove that the Spartans were mere mortals after all. But the badly demoralized Persian troops weren't convinced. They knew the war had only just begun, and that more Spartans lay in wait.
So there is a fear or almost a sense of mystery about the Spartans that infects the Persian ranks after Thermopylae. Thermopylae, we should be clear, is probably the greatest single defeat in any one day in Greek history. That being said, it does have some dividends for the Greeks. It allows the Greeks to mobilize to the rear in Attica. It gives them a sense of heroism, of coalescence around this act of bravery, and it does strike fear into the Persians that these are people they hadn't counted on.
Many years later, a monument was erected at Thermopylae to honor the 300 Spartans who heroically held off 200,000 Persians for 3 ferocious days. Here, on an unadorned stone, was engraved a classically simple epitaph. Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie.
It stresses the point that this had to be done, no matter what private perceptions and private thoughts were. The laws of Sparta dictated for Spartans to be there at this time.
In the one sense, it was something the Spartans needed. They needed a Spartan Battle of Marathon. They needed a time in which they could show that Spartan virtue was absolutely outstanding. Even if they didn't win, they had won the moral victory because they died to the last man.
What transpired at Thermopylae has been burned in the memory of Western civilization. After the fall of the Alamo, the local newspaper in Nacogdoches, Texas, proclaimed that Thermopylae now has a parallel.
With the Greeks' first line of defense now breached, the Persians were free to drive south through Attica, implementing a scorch and burn policy that spared nothing and no one. Crops and farms went up in smoke, statues of gods were demolished, temples destroyed. Even the Acropolis was set on fire. When word spread throughout Greece that the whole country was ablaze, many Athenians were on the verge of mutiny. They would never have believed that the tide was about to turn. In the last decades of the 5th century BC, all of the forces in Greece were briefly united against a single enemy, the seemingly invincible force of the more than 200,000 strong Persian army. After the Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BC, the Persian army and navy were free to drive south towards Athens. Greek morale seemed low and defeat imminent. But the Greeks decided to place their trust in a shrewd and respected Athenian commander named Themistocles.
And the decision is made by the great commander Themistocles to evacuate the hinterland and go over to the island of Salamis and rest the hopes of Greece on a sea battle.
The Athenians then decide to withdraw from their territory, not try to face down the Persians in some kind of a hopeless land battle, but rather withdraw from their territory, send their women and children to refugee camps in southern Greece behind the Isthmus wall, and to put all of their faith in their navy.
Under cover of darkness, the Greek navy embarked for the Bay of Salamis, some 60 miles down the coast. With its narrow channel, Themistocles was confident Salamis was the ideal spot to counter the superior numbers and greater mobility of the Persian fleet.
And Themistocles knows if they can break the Persian navy, then they've really won the war, or at least they've gone a long way towards winning the war because of the interdependence of the Persian army and the Persian navy.
With the Greek navy now in place, Themistocles devised a brilliant tactic to lure King Xerxes into making a disastrous move.